All hail the Clicks crew. Alright guys, today we're covering the big Heroclix news of Watchlist for Q3 2020. This is some really big news here. A lot of stuff got changed for the better. Two or three things kind of got changed for the worst. But we'll cover it. Overall, I think WizKid's design team's definitely doing a better job with these erratas and stuff like that. So generally I'm happy. I hope they continue to do stuff like this. Before we jump into the video though, this is a good time to let you guys know that Mr. Clicksflix is sponsored by Lucky Dice Cafe out of Huntsville, Alabama, home of the ROC. No matter if you're in the United States or around the world, Lucky Dice Cafe has a winning role for all your gaming needs. You can visit them at LuckyDiceCafe.com or on their Facebook page using the link found in the description of this video. Mr. Clicksflix is also sponsored by TrollandToad.com, one of the largest online gaming retailers. Visit TrollandToad.com using promo code MrClicksflix for 5% off your Heroclix order today. Alright guys, so the watch list, for those of you that don't know, is something that comes out generally once a quarter, if there's problems. And what it is problem figures are addressed and they have an errata done to them, or not if they determine that there's not really a problem, to make the game more balanced. So let's go ahead and I'll read the post to you from the WizKids.com, and yeah, so let's go ahead and get into this. All right, so results: Heroclix Watchlist Q3 2020. Dear Heroclix players, below are the official changes to figures/game elements on the Q3 2020 watch list. The following errata clarifications rulings are effective immediately as of this posting. So this is from yesterday. I guess if on the playback you don't know when yesterday was. 12/17/2020. And some of these figures are being addressed together due to the similar nature of their changes. So erratas issued are for Tri-Sentinel, X-Men The Dark Phoenix Saga G025 Iceman, Black Widow Chase from Black Widow movie set, Valeria Von Doom, Venom, Groot, and Spider-Man 1776 new edition. Now this is the first time I've seen them address something that wasn't on a watch list before. So this kind of came out of the blue, but you know, it's fine. And then tucked down behind here, you can't quite see, no errata issued, Captain America and the Avengers 054 Captain Marvel. So just trying to line everything up here so that you can see what I'm seeing. Alright, we have the Tri-Sentinel and Iceman. An errata is being issued for both Tri-Sentinel and Iceman to require the colossal retaliation attack to have been made in order for the after resolutions effect to trigger. So this was a big problem, in my opinion. This is probably the best thing I've seen on this whole errata. Before, what could happen is you could basically trigger the after action effects without having done it via a I don't want to, how do I paint this good, a fast and loose interpretation of the rules in the rules forum. Anyway, what it says here is current, and I like that they have the current and then the errata rulings too. So current, colossal retaliation, and this for Tri-Sentinel, when nothing less than genocide will do. Free, if no other colossal retaliation power has been activated this turn, choose an opposing character to attack Tri-Sentinel or damage a friendly character since your last turn. Place Tri-Sentinel such that it can target the chosen character using Pulse Wave at no cost, and do so. After resolutions, destroy all blocking terrain within 3 squares. Okay. Now, there's other stuff with Tri-Sentinel where if it destroyed blocking terrain, you get extra free stuff. And that's really what made this abusive, is you could destroy the blocking terrain without having executed the attack. So, the errata is free. If no other colossal retaliation power has been activated this turn, choose an opposing character that attacked Tri-Sentinel or damaged a friendly character since your last turn. Place Tri-Sentinel such that it can target the chosen character using Pulse Wave at no cost, then do so. If you did, after resolution, destroy all blocking terrain within 3 squares. So I like that they underline what the change is in all these, it seems like. That really helps kind of zero, because sometimes you read something on these erratas and the change is so slight. Now, it's significant, but the change is so slight that it's hard to pick up exactly what was changed. Whereas this is different. So how it's written now, you have to have executed the attack in order to get the destroy all blocking terrain within 3 squares effect, which is good. And then there's an explanation after these two, which we'll get into. So Iceman, Colossal Retaliation, Glacier Fists. Free. If no friendly character has been placed this turn, choose an opposing character that attacked Iceman or damaged a friendly character since your last turn. Place Iceman such that it can make a close attack targeting the chosen character, then do so. After resolutions, he can immediately use Incapacitate at no cost, but may target smaller characters. So, okay, you can see how that would be an issue based on what I told you about Tri-Sentinel. You basically get a free incap. The revision, free if no friendly character has been placed this turn. Choose an opposing character that attacked Iceman or damaged a friendly character since your last turn. Place Iceman such that he can make a close attack targeting the chosen character, then do so. If he did, after resolutions, he can immediately use Incapacitate at no cost, but may target smaller characters. So there you go. Explanation for this is these changes aren't due to the inherent power of the effects themselves, but due to an unintended rules interaction. These after resolutions effects were intended to be tied to the use of the Colossal Retaliation power, as is the wording allows for players to declare the free action without a legal target and allow the attack to attack to fizzle, but still triggering the after resolutions effect. We hope the player understands that we do not intend to limit these figures but adjust them to play as we intended. I don't understand why they didn't go into the rules for them and say, hey, you have to do A to do B. So again, when they worded it that way, nobody understood why they did it. They just went with it. They did do it. But again, these type of changes needed to happen. So I just hope in the future that they pay attention to these if they did clauses in these, and make sure that they show up so they don't have to issue erratas in the future, because it hurts as a judge to try to explain to people that what it says on the card isn't what the actual figure does, especially if it's a newer player. They don't understand. So to have the stuff just be right out of the gate is paramount. So Captain Marvel, no changes. While Captain Marvel is a strong figure, we do not feel that she is problematic or does anything that is unhealthy for the game. I don't disagree with that. That's fine. Again, it's a good figure, very strong. I think it's one of those, it's just, she's got good keywords, so it kind of enhances the problem, which is what we're going to talk about a little bit with the next one, Black Widow 17. This is the chase one from the Black Widow movie set, and errata has been issued to make Black Widow Espionage Patience trait an activated free action with a tradecraft token cost instead of a passive effect. Current Espionage Patience. If Black Widow is on a theme team or your starting force has 2 other characters from Black Widow movie set symbol, standard friendly characters can't have their attack rolls of 10 or more rerolled, and opposing characters targeting those characters can't have their attack rolls of 4 or less be rerolled. Errata. Espionage Patience. Free. If Black Widow is on a theme team or your starting force has 2 other characters from the Black Widow movie set, you may remove 2 tradecraft tokens, and if you did, while Black Widow is on the map, standard friendly characters can't have their attack rolls of 10 or more rerolled, and opposing characters targeted those characters can't have their attack rolls of 4 or less rerolled. So if you notice, again, the underlined part is what's different. They made it so that instead of basically being something that just kind of happens, passively without you ever saying anything. It's a free action now, and in order to activate the free action, you have to use the 2 Tradecraft tokens. And if you're familiar with the figure, you understand she gets a certain amount of those to start the game. So that's pretty cool. I like that. After the explanation, I'll talk about how I feel about it. Black Widow. Explanation. Black Widow fits on so many viable theme teams that the cost of espionage patience required a theme team in is really nominal in comparison to its impact on the game. As such, we felt that the trait needed to be given an additional cost of Tradecraft tokens. Even with the new cost, Black Widow will have many tricks that she can put out during the game. Just now, players will have to be more strategic, selective on how they use her Tradecraft tokens. So I agree with this. I played against a few different high-end Black Widow teams in some tournaments. Very strong figure, very difficult to get around. I had to not have a hard counter build specifically to that because my team was a little more well-rounded than that, but you for sure have to be building your team with her in mind when you were putting it together before the errata. Now, her having to burn Tradecraft tokens in order to make the rerolls a thing, I think that that's going to be... it's not going to keep people from playing her, which is good. I hate when they nerf something into oblivion, which is what we're going to talk about here in a minute. But these are just good. This is a good change with the Tradecraft tokens. So I agree with this. It kind of brought her in line. She's still very strong. I still think you're going to see Black Widow teams, but I don't think she's going to be oppressive to the point where your average player can't figure out what to do with her. So I think that's good. All right. Next one are Valeria Von Doom and Venom Groot. An errata is being issued for both Valeria Von Doom and Venom Groot to limit the offensive use of their abilities. Valeria Von Doom, current hunting anomalies from other worlds. Free, roll a d6 and place Valeria Von Doom up to that many squares away. When an opposing character is placed within 4 squares in line of fire, after resolution, deal them 1 penetrating damage. Errata. Free, roll a d6 and place Valeria Von Doom up to that many squares away. During your opponent's turn, when an opposing character is placed within 4 squares in line of fire, after resolution, deal them 1 penetrating damage. So if you notice, the underlying part is during your opponent's turn. What was happening is people were using Valeria Von Doom along with an assortment of rings and powers that made it so that you could force blast or move your opponent's figures during your turn to make them take clicks of damage without actually attacking them. It was a really good strategy, but apparently WizKids did not care for that, and I don't necessarily disagree, but I don't know, I felt like you had to work hard enough for it that I don't think it was that big of a deal. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and read the explanation, see what they have to say about it. While this power was intended to be an effect that would discourage opponents placing characters within 4 squares of Valeria, it was not intended to be a power that could be used to deal massive damage when compared with a character that can generate knockback, because the technical steps of knockback consider each square a separate placement. As written, Valeria would deal 1 damage per square a character was knocked back within 4. This was an unintended exploit of the effect that needed to be corrected. We felt the best solution with that still preserved the power. The power's original defensive function was to limit it to only triggering on your opponent's turn, so it can't be used offensively. So, yeah, that's without getting too far into the weeds. It's each time you knock back somebody 1 square, it was kind of like, okay, I knocked him back 1 click. Okay, I knocked him back 2 squares, 2 click, 3 squares, 3 clicks, and let's say you force blasted them back 3 squares. Each one of those would be considered a click instead of just 1 click because you knocked them back once. So I understand where they're coming from. This was really more of a, I don't know, maybe I wasn't paying attention enough. I always thought of this as like a secondary strategy. I hadn't seen too many people use it super effectively, but maybe there's something on the horizon that we don't know about, or I don't know about, that was going to make this a lot more abusive. I don't know. But not a terrible change. She's still a good figure. Venom Groot. Current. Fly traps and vine snares. When an opposing character is placed within 4 squares of Venom Groot, choose 1, modify the character's attack -2 this turn, or after resolutions, deal that character 1 penetrating damage. If that character occupies printed terrain, choose both. Hindering terrain, sorry. Errata, once during your opponent's turn for all characters with this trait. When an opposing character is placed within 4 squares of Venom Groot, choose 1, modify the character's attack -2 this turn, or after resolutions, deal that character 1 penetrating damage. If that character occupies printed hindering terrain, choose both. So people were running multiples of this and dealing the damage, similar to Valeria. Again, I mean, it could get abusive. I see where they're coming from on both of these. I feel like you're having to work pretty hard to pull this off. But you know, I don't know everything that's going on with them. But these are okay. I don't personally play either of these figures. I can see where they're coming from on it. So I guess that's the most important thing. It's only whenever I don't understand why they did something where I'm getting pretty upset about it. All right. So this is the one I've been kind of alluding to. Spider-Man 1776. This is the chase figure from Spider-Man and Venom Carnage. So current. The general that founded a nation. Leadership super senses. Opposing forces have -1 action total, minimum 2. Opposing characters within 6 squares can't use leadership or autonomous. Okay. Errata. The general that founded a nation. Leadership super senses. When Spider-Man 1776 hits, until your next turn, opposing forces have action total -1, minimum 2, or opposing characters within 6 squares can't use leadership or autonomous. So as you can see, the difference is that you need to hit now, and you have to basically be doing this the entire time in order to pull it off. We'll read the explanation, and then I'll talk about how I feel about it. So, explanation. Spider-Man 1776 action total limiting has proven to have too much of a chilling effect on the viability of certain team builds and strategies, especially as a passive map-wide effect. We felt that it necessary to have the effect trigger on Spider-Man 1776 hitting with an attack and limiting the effect of the opponent's next turn in order to rein in its effect on the metagame. You can still disrupt your opponent's well-laid plans, but now, like any good general, Spider-Man 1776 has to lead his troops from the front lines. While we strive, and then we'll read this last little bit, and then I'll talk about it. While we strive to avoid making changes to figures after they've been released, if possible, our ultimate goal is to have fun, friendly, and healthy games paired with a positive gameplay experience for both our casual and tournament players. We do reserve our right to revisit, make changes to any game of elements highlighted in previous watch lists, especially as new game elements are released. Thank you to our players and playtesters for providing feedback on how we can further improve the game of Heroclix WizKids team. Alright, so whoever wrote this obviously didn't like Spider-Man 1776. It is a pretty powerful figure. You could abuse it. Not really my jam. I do own one, but this was not a strategy I was planning on going with. But we'll talk about what it does and why they changed it and why he is not nearly as good now. I would say he's almost not quite a casual play. He's definitely a good play, and I'm sure some good players are still going to run him and do okay with him. But not nearly what he was. So leadership super senses, that's easy enough. And even after the errata, you still blanket get that. The main problem, as I saw it, was the opposing forces have action total -1, minimum 2. So basically what I was seeing was people were running doubles of them and making so even if you had leadership you got on an opposing team and you were playing 300 points, you still were only getting 2 actions. Now I liked that it was 2 actions minimum, because if you made it 1, that's not enough to run. I mean, unless you're running a one-man army, which would have been interesting to see. them kind of make you run a one-man army to see if people would have gone for that. But and having 3, it's like, okay, well, if they're not running leadership, this power is literally not doing anything. But yeah, so you ran 2 of these. Now this guy's, maybe I'll do a whole video on just this. But anyway, long story short, people were running 2 of them. And then there's opposing characters within 6 squares can't use leadership or autonomous. Now, if they can't use leadership within 6 squares, they still have a minimum action value of 2, so it's like it's not really doing anything other than the fact that they can't pull tokens. But there's most meta teams, in my experience, don't rely on the actual removal of token portion of leadership. It's the action, the action economy that it brings. So to remove, to be within 6 squares for the leadership, it doesn't make sense, because you already have, especially if you're running 2 of these, it doesn't make sense to do that. Now, if you're running 1 of these and you're within 6 squares, and then you get the -1 action total, okay, that's, now you're getting a twofer. And then or autonomous. So those figures that have the little band around the fist, those don't count towards your action total, so it makes it so that they do count towards your action total. So what they did is, instead of being able to chill in the back, like most generals do, despite what they said, they force you to get this guy into the fray. And he now must hit. It's not just attack, he has to hit, and then it's only for 1 turn. They get the -1 action total. Is that how I'm reading that? Period. Yeah. So, I'm trying to reread this. I'm having a hard time telling if he has to hit. No. Okay, so he always gets the opposing characters with the 6 squares. Can't use leadership or autonomous. So he always gets that, and he always has the super senses in leadership. The other thing is, so it's the only thing that changed was the action total -1. So you have to hit in order to do that. So again, I'm not really sure why. So there's 2 things that I can think of that would have fixed this that don't involve making it so that you have to hit. Either make this guy unique so that you could only run 1, which makes it so that your opponent, if they're running leadership, still gets their 3, and then you got to kind of maneuver the 1 guy you have to get them to the true -2. Or they could have done it where it's still an area of effect, but the other ones within 6 squares, why not just make everything within 6 squares? Or 6 squares within 6 squares in line of fire. If there's an opposing character within 6 squares in line of fire, to Spider-Man 1776, your opponent has action total, opposing force has action total -1, minimum 2. I don't know. I feel like that this kind of hurt him. Now, there's still plenty of ways to get around it. You can still hit your opponent with all kinds of crazy stuff. I think this is going to force me to do a Spider-Man 1776 video for post errata, but this is probably the one I disagree with the most. And I see where they were coming from. Again, I see where they were coming from, so I'm not like total, oh, this is the dumbest thing ever. But I think that this change was a little heavy-handed. Especially when you consider Vulture's still out there lurking, and that's what I'm getting at in this video. I don't know. This was a hard counter to Vulture team. Vulture needs all 4 of those actions to pull this off. And now you're saying they get all 4 actions unless I'm willing to TK this guy all the way across the board. Like, figure out a way to get him all the way across the board. Basically sacrifice him in order to give myself 1 turn of not dealing with Vulture. I don't understand. Again, I think making this unique would have been the way to go. But nobody asked me. I'm not part of that. But other than that, the Groot and Valeria thing, I get. It was obvious when you read it that these were supposed to be defensive initiatives that people had just basically run amok with. So I understand where that they took that back to what was intended and not how people were playing it. That's fine. The Black Widow thing, I think she needed reined in. I think it was a little too powerful. And then you force it to activate with a free action. There's plenty of counters for that. I'm looking at you, Billy Batson. And then there's also the remove 2 tradecraft tokens to do that. I think this was probably the second best change on the list. The Miss Marvel or Captain Marvel, totally agree with. Didn't need changed. And the Iceman and Tri-Sentinel 100% needed change to this. Again, sort of like Valeria and Venom Groot, they changed it to what was obviously intended and not what was being done. So overall, I think agreeing with how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6 out of 7. Agreeing with 6 out of 7 rules changes is really good. So WizKids did an outstanding job on this overall. So I'm not going to harp on it too much for them, kind of being a little heavy-handed with one figure. And again, I haven't seen it happen, but I would assume if they realized they were too heavy-handed with the figure, they could always go back and undo some of it, like make another revision. I wouldn't be a fan of doing that too much, but I think that it would probably be warranted in this once they see the new effect on it. Or I could be totally wrong. You guys let me know in the comments below. Is there still an easy way to abuse Spider-Man 1776, or is it pretty much out the door now? You got to be too aggro with them, and this is not an aggro figure. I'm always interested in reading that stuff. If you guys care to support the channel, make sure to visit me at patreon.com/MrClicksFlicks. And let me know what you think about this video. Give it a thumbs up, give it a share. It really helps keep me motivated to make these videos. Till next time, please remember that it's only critical mass if you don't have probability control.